Pleasant day to everyone. I am Marjorie Miru and here are my groupmates, Miss Ayla Shane Armas, Miss Gisa Mesta, Miss Jamaica Ella Milanyo, Mr. Glenn Rilano, and Mr. Jason Naval. For the next few minutes, you are going to watch our blog for Activity 1 entitled As Teachers, Knowledge on Contents and Pedagogy, and Activity 4 entitled As the Teaching Learning Resources, ICT, and the Curriculum. At the end of this activity, the FE student must be able to achieve the following intended learning outcomes. Number 1, identify the strategies used by the teacher that promotes numeracy skills, literacy skills, higher order thinking skills. Number 2, take an account on various strategies employed by the teacher. And number 3, observe and categorize classroom communication strategies employed by the teacher that support learners' maximum involvement and greater accomplishment.
For our observation report, the first principle of learning is effective learning begins with a setting of clear and high expectation of learning outcome. It is the objectives in the lesson, whereas the teacher proceeded on giving a pre-activity to the student without discussing the objective to be able to evaluate the student's prior knowledge with the topic. The second principle of learning is an active process. It is the motivation or presentation of the lesson, whereas pre-activity presentation of question and answer were through the use of electronic devices. Questions are shown on television while students input their answer using the app Kahoot. The third principle of learning is the discovery of personal meaning and relevance of ideas. It is the lesson proper or presentation of the lesson, whereas the teacher used a PowerPoint presentation to discuss his lesson. He also prepared a video presentation for his student to be able to understand or more like to experience what is being discussed. Hearing and seeing something for yourself makes you remember and understand more about a subject or a topic. The fourth principle of learning is a cooperative and collaborative process. Learning is enhanced in an atmosphere of cooperation and collaboration. It is the presentation of the lesson, whereas teacher and student share ideas verbally. The teacher asks the student about their personal opinion and ideas regarding the subject, while students are very cooperative and openly share their thoughts.
Fifth principle of learning is learning involves creating supportive and responsive environments that are tuned to stimulate a learner to become active. It is influenced by environment. It is the motivation and lesson proper in the lesson, whereas the teacher was providing a friendly learning environment through implementing the students if they have recited. If the students are being motivated, the lessons would make them feel excited, and more ideas will come up. Next is learners master basic and component skills through practice. It is the lesson proper in the lesson, whereas communication skills can be mastered by students as the teacher encourages them to recite and let the students perform the exercises involving their subject. Next is learning is stronger and more permanent in a positive emotional climate. It is the lesson proper in the lesson, whereas the discussion of the lesson appealed to the students' emotion. The students were asked about familiar music, and as they recall or think about that, they will remember the feeling while listening to it. Next is acquiring and applying habits of mind improves learning performance. It is the lesson proper in the lesson, whereas the teacher lets students determine what kind of music was played and ask them how did they come up to that answer. Letting students explain their answers makes their mind work better and can help in improvements of their learning performances.
Let's go to the questions. 1. Are there other principles not applied by the teacher nor listed in the table? If yes, write them on the space provided. During our observation, there were no other principles that are not applied by the teacher. 2. What skills are developed or enhanced during the learning process? The skills that are developed or enhanced during the learning process are communication skills and active participation. Being able to share your thoughts and opinions is the best way of learning. It exercises your mind and practices your verbal abilities as an individual. 3. What did the teacher do to enhance or develop the needed skills? Communicating. The teacher was able to communicate actively with his students. The teacher knows what to do to make their students listen and participate. His student will gladly answer and share their answers. Clear elaboration in teaching. Participation of the student during recitation is also because of the effective and clarity of how the lesson has been elaborated. The teacher clearly discussed the lesson with her students. 4. What communication skills were utilized by the teacher during the teaching learning process? The communication skills were utilized by the teacher during discussion. The teacher listened to the ideas and opinions shared by the students. The teacher always makes sure that his student understood the topic before discussing a new one by consistently asking the student if they understood the topic. The teacher has a friendly tone and relaxed body that makes her student comfortable to constantly participate and enjoy his class. 5. Describe how the learners respond to the communication strategies of the teacher. The learners responded to the communication strategies of the teacher based on our observation. Most of the students were paying attention and participative of the teacher during the discussion. Some of them were raising their hand to share their answer when the teacher asked a question. Most of them are actively enjoying their lesson, and some of them are seriously listening to the teacher.
Now, we will identify the strategies or techniques used by the teacher throughout the learning process. So, our first procedure is motivation. The strategy or techniques is that the teacher greeted his students and they prayed for the presence of God. Before formally starting the lesson, the teacher asked his students to have a recap about their previous lesson. Next procedure is the presentation of the lesson. The strategy or technique is to condition the mind of his students. He gave a free activity using Kahoot app. In here, the students are allowed to comprehend their background knowledge about the topic to discuss. Next, development of the lesson. The lesson is presented in an easy-to-understand manner by the teacher. He used some YouTube video clips to get the students' attention. While we're watching, he explained it well. The teacher shares ideas and experiences as well as students participated in a lively class discussion. Now, let's proceed to the generalization, closure, or drawing insights. The teacher was unable to provide a summary of the lesson, but he occasionally asked the students time to time if they understand and comprehend what was being discussed.
Enrichment application fixing skills. The teacher uses situational examples so that the learners will able to understand the lesson. Students are gladly sharing their new learnings towards the discussion. It is inductive method of teaching. Assessment or evaluation. Teacher Jumel evaluates his students by giving them a quiz by using a Kahoot game app in which it is a battle of questions has to be answered, and whoever answered correctly can get rewards. It is a deductive method of teaching. Agreement or assignment. Based on what you observed, Teacher Jumel just announced the activities or requirements that the student need to accomplish or to perform. And we can say that he used his communication speaking skills as his technique to get her students to follow and to do it. It is deductive method of teaching. Are the learning principles applied by the teacher is appropriate with the nature of the learners and learning conditions? Why or why not? Yes, it is appropriate to the nature of learners and learning conditions. The students were able to learn something new and develop new and important or necessary skills for learning process. Teacher Jumel were able to meet the objectives and able to meet the needs of the students. A teacher who doesn't know his or her students nor what needs to learn is not teacher and not okay to become a teacher.
Did you observe passive learners? If yes, what might be the reasons why they are passive or silent? Yes, some of the students are passive, maybe because they are not confident enough to showcase their thoughts and ideas. Or maybe some of them are just listening and observing inside the classroom. Are the communication strategies used by the teachers appropriate to the level of the students? Justify your answer. Yes, both the teacher and the students seems to easily understand each other. There are some of the students that are willing to exchange ideas with the teachers. They are comfortable to express their thoughts and ask questions because the teacher relay their topic appropriately to the level of the students. If you are the teacher, what possible learning principles and strategies would you apply to elicit meaningful learning? If I am the teacher, I will make sure that the students are the center of learning, where there are rich exchange of ideas between me, the teacher, and the students. We all know that it is easier to catch up the attention of the students if the teacher is using visuals, audio, graphics, or moving images while discussing, so that utilizing the technology as a strategy to elicit meaningful learning can be more effective. Among the principles of learning, which one is the most important for you? Substantiate your answer. I believe that student-centered learning is the most important principles of learning. Why? Because it gives the students the opportunity to decide of what material they learn and how they learn it. In contrast to the teacher-centered approaches, student-centered learning engages the students as the leaders and decision makers in their own learning. Example, the students conduct a research and they communicate their ideas with the teachers, and the teachers will help guide the students or the process, but still, the content and the outcome is down to the students themselves.
Activity 4, the Teaching Learning Resources, ICT, and the Curriculum Intended Learning Outcomes. At the end of this activity, the FE student must be able to achieve the following learning outcomes. Number 1, identify what type of curriculum are utilized in DepEd schools. Number 2, describe how teaching and learning process are sequenced to meet the curricular needs or requirements. Number 3, determine the teaching learning resources and ICT that facilitate teaching learning process. And number 4, evaluate the resources used in the learning environment.
Types of curriculum. Number 1. Recommended curriculum. Example, K-12 science curriculum for grade 9. Where located? At the school. Description. It identifies the skills, concept, and content that will be emphasized throughout the learning process. Number 2. Written curriculum. Example, lesson plan. Where located? At the school. It is a specific and comprehensive plan which intends to ensure that the educational goals of the system are being accomplished at a school. Number 3. Taught curriculum. Example, textbook. Where located? At the school. Description. It is a standard-based sequence of plain experience where students practice and achieve skills.
Supported curriculum is the fourth type of curriculum. Its example is audiovisual aids and it is located at the school. It involves additional tools, resources, and learning experiences found in and outside the classroom. Assessed curriculum is the fifth type of curriculum. Its example is quizzes and it is found in school. This curriculum is the assessment of the learner. It is formative and summative assessment to measure their level of learning. The sixth type of curriculum is the learned curriculum. Its example is the seminar. It is also found in school. This is the students walk away with from a course. It includes the subject matter and knowledge they learned from a course, but it can also include additional changes in the attitude. Lastly, the hidden curriculum. Its example is the respecting authority, and it is found in the school. These are the unwritten, unofficial, and often unintended lessons, values, perspective that students learn in the school.
Now, let's talk about how a curriculum's components or elements are reflected on the daily lesson plan. Let's proceed to the behavioral objectives or desired learning outcomes. In planning the lesson plan, the main objective of the lesson is for students to acquire knowledge and information after the discussion. So the teacher must carefully plan the flow of the discussion based on the behavioral learning outcomes. The subject matter is appropriate for the lesson's level and relevant in terms of their knowledge and concepts. It is organized in a sequential order, beginning with a review, motivation, presentation of the lesson, and development of the lesson. The next one is the content. It is simplified and understandable for students. The teacher must define key terms before beginning the lesson so that students can comprehend the subject that will be covered. The next one is teaching and learning methods or strategies. The teacher provided a lot of illustrations and examples and connected these to various disciplines in his lesson plan. He will be using a PowerPoint presentation, a laptop, Wi-Fi, and printed modules. Collaborative learning is used as a strategy to help students learn more effectively. And as a result, the lesson plan approaches or strategies are visible. We notice that the teaching strategies or approaches are based on the desired outcomes. The last one is an assessment or the evaluation. The evaluation or assessment looks at how well students remember facts about the topic and how they can apply what they've learned. The assessment was in line with the learning objectives of the lesson. This will be the basis for the teacher to know how much information the students retained. Additionally, the evaluation strategy was appropriate because it is accurately assess the students' knowledge. The teacher should also ensure that the students' cognitive, affective, and psychomotor skills are
Enrichment application fixing skills. The teacher uses situational examples so that the learners will able to understand the lesson. Students are gladly sharing their new learnings towards the discussion. It is inductive method of teaching. Assessment or evaluation. Teacher Jumel evaluates his students by giving them a quiz by using a Kahoot game app in which it is a battle of questions has to be answered, and whoever answered correctly can get rewards. It is a deductive method of teaching. How did you know that there exists such curriculum in the DepEd schools or laboratory schools? In the Philippines, it is a government-mandated curriculum. These are the prescribed courses from various government agencies that were distributed to various schools throughout the Philippine archipelago. This standardizes and uniformizes the educational system.
The educational experiences will effectively organize and contribute to the attainment of objectives by making the students have the experience that give him or her an opportunity to practice kind of behavior implied by the objectives. The students' learning experiences must be an experience that obtains satisfaction from carrying on the kind of behavior implied by the objectives. The textbooks, PowerPoint presentation, laptop, Wi-Fi, and printed modules are the resources listed on the lesson plan, and it was utilized better in the classroom. The teacher presented the well-organized PowerPoint presentation using the laptop and Wi-Fi, and gave some printed modules, textbooks, for students' copy. The amount of such learning materials are enough for every student.
As a pre-service teacher, how do you plan, manage, and implement developmentally sequenced teaching and learning process to meet curriculum requirements in varied teaching contexts? As a pre-service teacher, we think that anticipated learning competencies first should be taken into account before designing the inter-teaching learning process. Second, it is to conduct a formative assessment which will allow me to assess my students' basic understanding of the topic. Third, we believe we must constantly consider our students' interests and learning styles, as this will aid us into designing the approaches and techniques that we'll use in the process. The next step is to create an evaluation. The evaluation of students acquires skills, knowledge, and competencies during the teaching and learning process. It may also give teachers feedback on how effective their methods are. As a solution, we might devise several techniques like using student-centered methods like asking questions, their insights, and more. How do you set achievable and appropriate learning outcomes which are aligned with learning competencies? We, as a future educators, we will establish learning objectives based on the revised Bloom's taxonomy. We will focus on the 3 learning domains of cognitive, affective, and psychomotor learning, because students' learning cannot be measured on the knowledge about the topic. By including the 3 domains, a student's overall personality will be enhanced. We will specify each learning outcome so that our students will know exactly what to expect about the subject and avoid confusion and idea overlapping. We will also use carefully set and adhere to the lesson's time duration in order to fully achieve these learning objectives. In order to properly achieve these learning aims, we will utilize carefully set and adhere to the time period for the session. We will develop assessments and evaluation to determine whether or not students are actually learning and achieving the targeted learning outcomes.
How do you plan, manage, and implement developmentally sequenced teaching and learning process to meet curriculum requirement in valid teaching context? Thoroughly, planning is really important to engage and commit to. It is preparing ourselves to have a strong aid in teaching learning process. And most significant part of curriculum enactment is that the teacher should contemplate cautiously the order in which learning targets should be learned and understand smartly. We must be adaptable, motivated, and excellent of managing and implementing our skills in order to accommodate learners with varying levels of comprehension in the classroom. How do you set achievable and appropriate learning outcomes which are aligned with learning competencies? For us, alignment with the competency for a level of knowledge goes by on what appropriate learning outcomes. A reasonable structure is always founded on a true understanding of the desired outcome. Our goal as educators is to broaden and deepen students' knowledge. To create learning experience and opportunities for our students, we must first articulate the specific learning goals, the knowledge, skills, understanding, and traits they will need to succeed. Assessment should show how well students have learned and what we want them to learn. Where areas teaching ensures that they learned it.